Two Windsor College seniors, Maureen and Phil, attend a sneak preview of Stab, a film based on the events of the Woodsboro massacre that took place at the beginning of the first Scream movie. Briefly exiting the theater to use the bathroom, Phil is killed by the masked killer now known as Ghostface. Ghostface sits beside Maureen in Phil's place and stabs her, leading her to climb up on stage in a cry for help, which the audience mistakes for a publicity stunt until she falls dead. The news media, including local journalist Debbie Salt, descend on Windsor College, where Sidney Prescott studies alongside her best friend Hallie, her new boyfriend Derek, fellow Woodsboro survivor Randy, and Derek's best friend Mickey. Two other Woodsboro survivors arrive: police officer Dewey Riley to offer Sidney protection, and reporter Gail Weathers to cover the case. Gail and her new cameraman Joel unsuccessfully try to stage a confrontation between Sidney and Cotton Weary, who is attempting to gain fame from his exoneration for the rape and murder of Sidney's mother, Maureen Prescott. That evening, Sidney and Hallie attend a party at a sorority house. At another nearby sorority house, Ghostface murders student Cece Cooper. After the partygoers leave, Ghostface enters the house and attacks Sidney. Ghostface injures Derek but flees when the police arrive. Later, after realizing that Cece's real name is Casey, Gail theorizes that the new Ghostface is targeting students with the same names as the Woodsboro murder victims. Randy theorizes that the killer is likely someone Sidney knows and is basing the killings on a movie sequel. Soon after, Ghostface calls Gail, Dewey, and Randy while they are together on the college campus. Despite their attempts to find him, Ghostface ultimately ambushes Randy, pulling him into Joel's media van, where he is murdered. Joel, scared he will be targeted next, skips town. As night falls on the campus, Dewey and Gail go to a building to review tapes of footage shot by Joel, hoping to spot the killer in the vicinity of the previous crime scenes. But the killer attacks them, stabbing Dewey. Two officers drive Sidney and Hallie to a safe house, but Ghostface intercepts the car and murders them. In the ensuing struggle, Ghostface is knocked unconscious but recovers and kills Hallie. Drawn to music playing in the campus theater, seeking safety, Sidney finds Derek in the auditorium tied to a cross from an earlier fraternity hazing ritual. Ghostface arrives, revealing himself to be Mickey, and shoots Derek, killing him. Mickey intends to kill Sidney and allow himself to be arrested so he can blame violence in movies for the murders at his trial. Local reporter Debbie Salt is then revealed to be his accomplice, whom Sidney recognizes as Mrs. Loomis, Billy Loomis's mother. Mrs. Loomis betrays Mickey and shoots him, reflexively shooting and injuring Gail before he collapses. Mrs. Loomis reveals that she is seeking revenge against Sidney for killing her son, but Sidney points out the hypocrisy of her motive, considering that Mrs. Loomis abandoned her own son in the past, which caused him to turn into a serial killer. The pair fight until Cotton intervenes. Mrs. Loomis attempts to manipulate Cotton into murdering Sidney, but to her shock, he chooses to shoot Mrs. Loomis in exchange for an interview with Sidney and Diane Sawyer. Mickey suddenly resurfaces, but he is then promptly and viciously gunned down and killed by Gail and Sidney. Sidney then shoots Mrs. Loomis in the head to ensure she is dead. When the police arrive, Dewey is revealed to still be alive, and Gail climbs into the ambulance with him rather than taking the opportunity to report to the returned Joel, indicating that she cares more for Dewey than for the notoriety she always sought. Sidney instructs the press to direct questions to Cotton, rewarding him with the fame he has been chasing while removing the attention from herself.